Hey, it's me, Hrishikesh Kannan, popularly known as Hrishi K. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon now to get the latest videos and get taken into a world of entertainment, culture, sport, business, and current affairs.
What is it that men need to learn about women?
They need to learn that they don't know better. They should stop mansplaining for sure, because I think women's planning is much more effective than mansplaining for sure.
Patience and multitasking.
Truly, I know it sounds very schoolish, but equality. If you are doing the same job, same salary, please believe in equality and do not feel that you are privileged.
कुछ 2-3 दिन पहले की बात थी, somebody was telling me, हमें ना एडिटर एक्चुअली ना एक लड़का दे दो, क्योंकि हमें रात को काम करने की आदत है, तो पता नहीं लड़की कर पाए. Assume मत करो, don't assume on behalf of women, and please don't put us in a box.
Mutual respect, because more than men and women, I think just individually we do have different strengths and weaknesses. So acknowledging that and not necessarily attributing it to a gender.
Actually acknowledge their privilege. And I think that's very important, which is, know that there are hindrances for women which they may not even be aware of because they've never had to deal with those hindrances.
Happy Women's Day in advance. How are you guys feeling?
Thank you so much. To you too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ashwini, I want to start with you. In Bareli Ki Barfi, your principal protagonist, played by Kriti, dislikes patriarchy, really strong character, loved it. Panga, again, Kangana's character breaks the barriers that society had set upon her. Now, when you write and execute women characters, have you had total clarity? Or sometimes have you struggled how to portray them, how to have their conflicts put forth?
I would say I have had total clarity is because a lot of those characters usually come from some of my own experiences growing up as a girl from the 70s. And also the kind of people I have met across the country. Also, a lot of my researches in my stint in advertising, where I used to go and research so many girls and, take bites from them for backtracking them for branding and advertising. But those kind of references, I think a lot of those anecdotes come from life experiences, either which I have gone through or I have seen friends going through during my growing up days in college and school. And also what you see, I think as filmmakers, we are very curious people, and we kind of ask questions and we understand. And I kind of like traveling by taxis and auto rickshaws is because you just tend to start talking to people who you would not talk to otherwise, and then kind of understand their point of view. So in Panga, the character of the woman going to work after having kids was something which I had experienced with by far too many friends of mine and women I have encountered in my advertising career, is because I saw brilliant women, MBAs and like highly intelligent. As soon as they had kids, they took a back seat. It's nothing wrong in taking a back seat. And not everyone is privileged to, have a support system which would take you forward there. But the very fact that you sometimes start losing yourself in that whole process is what, which is something which has always somewhere troubled me. Because in my growing up years, my mother was very clear on one thing, is that, you need to study well and you need to fall in love and you need to get married, you need to have children also. And I will be asking you when you're having children, but you need to continue working. Is because that is something which is, and when I asked her that who's going to take care of the kids and what is going to happen, she said everything will take care of itself. Most of us do not have that privilege, but I just feel that if we could have, and if there was little sense that, there is a husband who would be taking care, who would understand why this woman is going through this, would be great. Kriti's character, single child like me, also the fact that the mother is a teacher, my mother was a principal of a school, and those little things, someone who from a small town has her own mind, but it contradicts to that one statement she makes with her father, where she says that I wish I was not a girl. It is so difficult to be a girl growing up here. And he says that I do not understand what society says. I completely understand what you say. And I do know that I would give you all the liberty to be who you are. But this is a society we live in. And so we just need to stay in that little boundaries. So the log kya kahenge wala thing was something which is very pertinent in Bareli Ki Barfi.
Yeah, and that's a lovely father-daughter relationship also you've shown, but that's for another interview. Leena, when you're casting male actors in a predominantly female cast like Parched, apart from them being good actors, which is a given, do you look at their sensitivity towards women's issues? Do you look at their sensitivity towards the issue at hand?
No, first I look at them as an actor. And then I actually do a workshop with most of my actors before we start, or before I actually finalize them for the role. I ask them what do they feel about the character. Because I don't feel like an actor should ever play a role with judgment. Because if you're saying, I'm going to play this asshole who does this, you're going to be playing that guy. As an actor, I feel like he has to feel the heart of the guy, whoever the guy is. So that's a major workshop, and especially in Parched, I think that film felt like therapy for everybody because we all went through very, very personal journeys to make that film together.
Nice. Guneet, when Period End of Sentence won an Oscar, it was a big victory for all of us. We were all cheering for you. Now, talk about how people are still reacting to it. I think it's only appropriate on Women's Day we should do that. I'm sure your phone, your message line still rings. Somebody somewhere on this planet who's seen it and who reacts, especially the men, how they've reacted to it.
Even when the campaign was happening at the Oscar campaign, there was a conversation that we were prepared before. It was in just the chatter around was like, most of the voters are men. And this topic is just, it ekes everyone while it's all okay. But, you've gotten nominated and this is just how far you can get. Don't expect to win. So I don't think any one of us thought that we would. We were just like, okay, this is great. We're celebrating being here, having a good time with the team. But holy shit, we won. So I think the response has been phenomenal, and the response has been phenomenal globally also because of Netflix, the push that they gave and the global resonance that the film has had. And I have had the most amazing, in fact, a lot of our initial donors were men. So I think the conversation has expanded where it's okay to talk about things that we want to talk about, women issues, women's sanity, sanitary issues. So, yeah.
Go insane also.
Yeah.
When only one day is eliminated.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got great response. But, what I took back from the experience of the film was it was truly women empowering women. And when that really happens, we collectively reach the top. So it was 12 to 14-year-old girls who are actually producers of the film, who are from Oakwood School in LA, and the girls in Hapur. So they worked together. I was support system. I was an executive producer on the film, and I was support system in making the film happen and making sure the equipment is there and people are there, and it's coming together as a movie. But I saw one girl empower another over a year, and the intention was just to spread the message. And the way that film rose, I would say the way that intention rose, and it put all of us in the conversation on a world map.
Super stuff. Tahira, I like that Maninder's dad in The Quarantine Crush owns a bra shop. and also that your short film Toffee talks about small town girls and divisions in society. Tell me about writing with somebody like Ghazal Daliwal, how that experience is, and also how the representation of girls from small towns has changed. We always saw girls in small towns, Hrishikesh Mukherjee's films, other films, but a lot of their issues were not discussed. That has changed. So both things, writing with Ghazal and, the representation of small town girls.
Writing with Ghazal was an amazing experience. We collaborated. The beautiful part about Ghazal was I didn't know who Ghazal is and what all she has written and what all work she has done. But I just knew there's a fabulous writer and this story is there and we need to develop it further. Netflix approached and I loved the story from the word go, and then we developed it, and and this story is a lockdown story. So Chandigarh was the only place जहाँ पर लॉकडाउन नहीं हुआ था, तो मैंने सबको चंडीगढ़ बुला लिया, कहा आओ यहाँ शूट करें. So we shot that film there and it was a wonderful experience. There's a whole lot of insight that she has into this world, and one thing where I'm very proud for the both of us is that we stuck through, even though the story is about this neighbor having a crush, and it is very liked, loved and relatable when you have a crush on your neighbor, and it's okay to sort of peek and it's okay to sort of look through the window, but towards the end of it, and we have some two lovely songs coming in also, lovely story, but there is an angle of stalking which comes in, which is why it's important for women filmmakers and writers to take the onus, because otherwise this sort of love is celebrated. But being women, we understand that this is not, you are looking at the girl through a mirror, through whatever, without a permission. It's not supposed to be romanticized. It is called stalking and it could be harassment. So my idea of writing any story is to write it in a quirky, fun way like Toffee or even Pinni, that both the short films Quarantine Crush and Pinni is on Netflix. But again, the tonality is fun, quirky, but it gives you an insight. My one line towards any project that I take up is, what value am I adding? And in the most fun, entertaining way. That's how I like to perceive my life, and that's so Burari is like dark, and here you have another one who really wants to look at the light side of it and yet say something. And when it comes to small town girls, they all have their stories, and it's very important and imperative to really convey those stories. And Ashwini did that too in Bareli Ki Barfi. She's a small town girl, and what a lovely, strong woman she is. And she spoke enough about that, and that goes for Paglet also. And Sanya did a lovely, role in that. So there are a lot of people out here on this panel only who have really tried to tell a story of a small town girl, and it's equally entertaining, equally dark, equally complex. Women are no longer just black and white or revolutionaries or tragic queens. There is so much going there, even superficial. Even that is also a character. It's not always they're supposed to be pious and holier than thou and sort of to be revered and sort of to be respected. They can be hated too. They could be despicable too. But it's just that as long as you give us the credit that we are intelligent, complex beings, I'm very happy with that. So that the layers is what all of us as filmmakers, producers, directors, writers, we are really conveying that, and that's very important and very entertaining to watch too.
Well said. Chandni, in Indian Predator, the series, how many lady directors are there? And also I want your perspective on, are you seeing the numbers go up drastically of Indian filmmakers, lady filmmakers, or is it still a case of slow and steady?
So I think we were discussing this before. Vis-a-vis Indian Predator, I'm of course executive producer on it. I have a creative producer working on it who's a woman as well. I have a writer working. Initially we had a woman director. She chose not to do it for some reasons. So we do have people who are there, women who are there in a lot of the creative departments. That's specific to Indian Predator. And of course we were discussing this earlier. I think right now 5% is what you're saying? Less than 5% is the women creators right now in the industry. So, but as you can see by this whole thing that we are, I think, quite equal to 10%. So that I'd like to see. I'd like to ask you a question. आपको आज कैसा लग रहा है?
ये मुझे पता comeback होने वाला है.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I feel a mixture of a little bit of awe and, you know, just a nice warm fuzzy feeling. So thank you very much. Would you agree, Naomi, that stories well told can transgress urban as well as rural? I mean, I'll give you a classic example. We have a domestic help who's worked with us for years, and she binge watched Fabulous Wives with us. And I found her equally moved. And, you know, this whole thing about, I remember at one time Zoya used to say that. She used to say, you know, why do they say that I make these urban films? And obviously that changed after Gully Boy. But often, you know, lady filmmakers who make things which are very urban based are asked that question. I'd like you to react to that.
Posh people problems. So, no, but exactly that. So it is a world which is privileged, of course, no apologies about that. It is a world which is super urban. It is a world which is to a certain extent aspirational, but at the core of it, it is a world of four friends. You know, I think this series, I think, worked because it was celebrating the friendship of four women. You know, I always say this, that we have had enough boys films, we have enough bromances, but we don't really look into female friendships. So this was about female friendships in an urban space. Okay, friendships between four women who are very different from any of us, of course, who lead a certain kind of life. And at the end of the day, people had to connect to these characters. You know, people had to invest in these characters. They had to be interested in the stories. Like, for instance, you said people were moved, like when we had that scene where Chunky Pandey was sitting with his wife, and he was actually very sad that he's not won a Filmfare award for 25 years, but Ananya's got it. We've had people writing into us saying we were crying, and we were like, that was never our intent. We never wanted people to cry, but well, if they're crying, that's great. So people were moved to tears, which brings you back to that, now that at the core, it doesn't matter what the world is. If you have characters and if you have a story that connects to people, you've got to win.
Nice. Pratiksha, LGBTQI representation in your content. Ajib Dastan's had Gili Pucci, which was so aesthetically done. Feels Like Ishq had She Loves Me Not, which again, I thought was very beautifully done. How much of a focus is that for Netflix?
Globally, and it is a very important focus for us, and we've had some incredible films and series, especially when it comes to young adult content, right? Where we've, you know, take a couple of our shows like 13 Reasons Why, where whether it's the primary character or sometimes even the secondary character, we've been very intentional about bringing that representation, not just in the storytelling, but also in the people who are making it, in our own workplace as well. Having said that, I think in India, we definitely have a long way to go, but the intention is very much there. And I think a lot of the makers are also very open to it. And, you know, recently we've had 2 theatrical releases where there are, you know, important leading characters representing that community with Chandigarh Kare Aashki and Badhai Do. So it's a great time actually for all of us to see such films being done theatrically. So on streaming, you know, there is no limit.
It's like a corollary to that question. Netflix's conscious efforts and strategy to launch titles being helmed by women both on and off screen. Is that something you're doing consciously? Or is it like, you know, if it happens, it happens?
No, we're certainly doing it very consciously. In fact, I think last year we worked with about 50 women producers, directors, writers, right? And it has to be a conscious effort because we were just discussing this earlier. When you want to bring more representation, when you want to bring more inclusion, it doesn't happen just because you think you're open to it. You have to take very intentional steps towards it. You know, we've recently launched an initiative with Film Companion, where we are partnering young filmmakers with established makers to mentor them, to help them, you know, develop their projects. And they're required to have 50% women crew as part of their project. So it has to be an intentional effort if you genuinely want to make, you know, if you genuinely want to be inclusive.
I'd like all of you to take this. What is it that men need to learn about women? So can we start?
I think one, men need to be kind, and two, I think they need to just let women do what they want to do. I think those are two very important things I think men need to learn. That's what I think.
They need to learn that they don't know better. And they should stop mansplaining for sure, because I think women's planning is much more effective than mansplaining for sure.
Patience and multitasking.
सब कुछ ही बोल दिए. But to genuinely, truly, I know it sounds very schoolish, but equality. The same rules apply to you, same rules apply to me. Same, if I can multitask, and so can you. If you are doing the same job, same salary, please believe in equality and do not feel that you are privileged.
Don't put us in a box. Don't think you know it all and you can define us. ये ऐसी है, इससे ऐसे बात करें. ये हमें ना कुछ 2-3 दिन पहले की बात थी. somebody was telling me, हमें ना एडिटर एक्चुअली ना एक लड़का दे दो, क्योंकि हमें रात को काम करने की आदत है, तो पता नहीं लड़की कर पाए. अज्यूम मत करो. Don't assume on behalf of women, and please don't put us in a box from your explanation and stereotyping all of us.
I think mutual respect, because more than men and women, I think just individually we do have different strengths and weaknesses. So acknowledging that and not necessarily attributing it to a gender. Moving beyond that, I think men can take a big step in that direction.
I think all of what everyone said, and if I have to add one more to it, just actually acknowledge their privilege. And I think that's very important, which is, know that there are hindrances for women, which they may not even be aware of because they've never had to deal with those hindrances.
Nice. What are checks that you... Yeah, sure.
Add something here. So a few years before, if we had to shoot outdoors and literally small towns, we are right on the road, we're like shifting from one place to the other, there would not be any place arranged for us. When I say us, it's like me and a lot of other women in the team to see where we could go, use the washroom. And every time I remember that I would go and I would see which is the next closest hotel, which seems to be okay, and I would sit in the bike and just go use the washroom, come back. After repeatedly making it a point and making sure that this is what happens, and I kind of told myself that the day I become a producer, I'm going to make sure that these things are going to just be in place, that a washroom is necessary for women too, so you need to have that. And now I know that there is one vanity which has only washrooms set, and it only says female 1, female 2. Now that is the change which is required, is because others, where do we go? And how do you manage things? So a loo equal to women working in a crew, I think, is the most important thing.
Okay, my last question, I'd like each one of you to take that. What are checks you put on yourself? And I don't mean like religion and, these troubled times that we live in as far as people being oversensitive with content. When you're making content for women, or when you, in your case, Pratiksha, selecting, the right title, which involves women, what are the checks you put in place yourself? When you look at, hey, I'm going to executive produce this, for example, I'm going to direct this, and this has women in it. What do I need to take cognizance of, or what do I need to be careful of?
Let's begin from there. No? That's more important.
It's a very big question, but the short answer to that would be: is it authentic? Is it real? Because I think female representation, which is very real, has been missing for a long time. You know, we've had a lot of female stories told through the male gaze, which is totally fine, but just checking for that authenticity is very important, and also understanding what the intention of the creator is. What is the takeaway they want the audience to have at the end of it? So yeah, I'd say those would be the key things.
I think for me, at any point in time, the question is, why do I want to make this? What is the value I'm going to add to anything or to a discussion? So why should I put in this amount of time to do this? And why would the audience be interested in something like this? I think that's the key thing.
I firstly think women can do everything, you know, from a horror thriller to a superhero, because why not? And I, in my films with my directors, definitely do have a very conscious lens of, is this taking conversation forward? Wherever we are, will we, how do we want to be relevant when this film comes out 2 years from now? Because we work in long format. So yeah.
Same again, lots. But adding my little bit to it, like I said in the beginning, my intention is always to add value in the most fun way, for it to have some sort of conversation, for it to resonate. A human being is making for other human beings, so it needs to stir some emotion, whether that's love, hatred, but it needs to shake you up at some level. It just can't go unnoticed. So my intention is to make that content which can resonate with people in a good or a bad way, but they can relate to it, and then, yeah, like I said, add value.
For me, I think when I read a script or when I have an idea or I get an idea from someone, the first thing which I need to know is that how am I going to add value to this? And does it add joy to my life? Am I passionate enough to tell the story which is going to reach to thousands of people, and what are they going to take out of it? All characters are flawed, so I'm not going to always make the films, and I need to challenge myself. So the next question which I ask myself is, how is this challenging me as a filmmaker? How am I going to be different than my previous work? And does it allow me to explore, experiment, and also surprise my own self as a maker? So therefore the documentaries, and therefore different kinds of things. So that is the second thing. And the third one is that every time I talk about the characters, I write about the characters, or I portray the characters, even if they are flawed, especially the women, even if they are flawed, I have to be sensitive enough to show how flawed they can be and what extent they can go to. So even in that flawedness, I need to be sensitive enough to see and say, you know what, if I see this, would I like it? So that is my personal point of view, but I do feel that it is important that if my younger generation is going to watch it, what are they going to take out of that? For me, that really matters a lot.
I think for the show that we made specifically, I think one thing that we had to be very careful of, and we would get criticized for everything, is that you don't punch down at any stage. That we had to be very careful of, because everything else is fine. So that we're very specific about. Generally, I feel like if I had to write something with women characters, I would always, even if it's a love story, I would want the woman to have a life and agency beyond her love interest. So even if it's a deep love story and like the hero is, I'm swooning over the hero and all that, that's great. But you have to have some interests beyond that man, even if he's the hottest man in the world. So yeah.
So I mostly work or only right now work in the non-fiction space, not in the fiction space. So for me, also because news is the kind of fast-paced environment that has been there, we've done really superficial things. It's the nature of the business. So for the first time, we're able to explore stories and layer them. And for me, the layering is really, really important. Even for a story that everybody knows, that's important. And my check and balance, I think that was your initial question, is in the documentary space is actually a very difficult space to work in, because you're talking about you're talking with real people about real issues, and there is a larger environment right now which is which is not tolerant of a lot of things. So you have to be really, I think, conscious that you're being very responsible in how you do things. And I think that's my check and balance, and that's what we do every day, even as news people. Honestly, whose face can I show? Should we be doing this? Should we be talking about this? I think those are the kind of decisions I take as checks and balances.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.